voice. That's a thing.
Folks, I can probably shout loud enough for this distance in. Really? Yes? You hear us okay? Yeah, right. Folks, can I just personally thank you for all being brave enough to come out here. It's been a few months of, what would you call it? At the start of propaganda, and we can see, if we look at any of the evidence at all, that it isn't just propaganda. Fear. I made a point last week that if you want to collapse someone's immune system, you basically terrorise them with fear, and fear creates stress hormone, cortisol, and the immune system can collapse. And when your immune system's collapsed, you are then ready for any type of disease to occur. So the psychologist, the behavioural psychologists working for SAGE, a document was released where they said we must keep the level of fear and propaganda as high as possible to get compliance. Now, had this been the Black Plague, there would have been justification for it. Had we really been needed to hide in our houses like we poor and timorous beasties, then fair enough. But it wasn't the Black Plague, was it? 4 or 5 days before the lockdown came, and Dr. Vernon Coleman points this out, like a gentleman that he is, radical English, wonderful doctor, they lowered the contagiousness legally by saying that this really isn't that massively a contagious virus. I'm not going to read all this, don't worry, it's documents from pre-1990 about electromagnetic radiation. So they lower the status of the infectious disease, the virus, and a few days later, oxymoron comes, they lock us down. Truth of the matter was, Boris, I'm not keen on him, Boris was partially right with saying we should go for herd immunity. And what I mean by that is, if we had protected the vulnerable, I mean genuinely protected the vulnerable, and that was, we knew early in March from the stats coming from both China and particularly Italy, that the vulnerable were 70 plus with comorbidities, with various illnesses, underlying illnesses. We could have, because the scientists there have said everyone in care homes, everyone who has, and they put this out in the legislation, everyone who has like type 2 diabetes, who has, it even included obesity, over 40 BMI, they could have said people of, and it would need to be a table saying take this amount if you have this condition of vitamin D3. And the reason I'm saying that is quite a few of our scientists seem to me to be nothing but hirelings, paid either through their grants or their bought.
Here. You know how they say that men are more prone to coronavirus and COVID-19 than women, and that obese people are more prone to healthy weight people? That is the same with pneumonia. Scientific studies go way back saying that pneumonia. Funny that, eh?
But the point I'm going to get to here, folks, is that as a member of the public, I know, just even in the first few weeks of this virus, as it was coming towards us before lockdown, that immune modulation would stop a cytokine storm. Now we all know what a cytokine storm is. That's a massive overreaction of our immune system. Now if you take enough vitamin D3, there's over 84,000 peer-reviewed papers in this, about 700 odd papers on the benefits to the upper respiratory tract. It creates defences. And at the back end of a Scottish winter, we were at a situation where too many people are low on vitamin D3. And had the government given out advice that we should all take, for the first week, about 10,000 IUs each to up the immune system defence, the shield, most people would not have been affected. But the truth of the matter is, people that were possibly infected, a lot of them were asymptomatic. It was only ever going to really affect about 5% of the people. So if someone's going to affect only 5% of the people, why would you lock down the entire nation? And given we were given the slogans about protect the NHS, protect the vulnerable, save lives, why on earth did they kick out so many elderly people from the hospitals who were possibly infected and send them into their care homes?
Yes,
that is horrific. This is my opinion. This is what they did. This is
deep state murder.
Well, it's Dr. Vernon Coleman that uses the word murder. But I'll tell you, another leading cardiologist who teaches other doctors, a Scottish one working in England, Dr. Malcolm Kendrick, ended his blog where he discussed this, and he writes the following words: thud, ... the sound of my head whacking my desk in utter frustration.
Here, here.
That's from a leading doctor. So if there's going to be an investigation into the number of deaths in the care homes, the elderly and the frail, let's make sure that the stats come back true and accurate. How many people were tested before they were sent into the community and into the care homes? It's an absolute disgrace. And I'm going to answer and say about the scientists as well. The scientists who are making comments saying, oh, vitamin D3, we don't have enough information about this. It's, we need a clinical trial, we need to do this, we need to do that. The truth of the matter is, if you stop a cytokine storm, that's only one route. You stop the majority of the damage being done. And okay, there'll be those of you who know there's a other pathway through the blood where the oxygen depletion occurs as well. Vitamin C, which is not allowed to be used mostly in the NHS. Vitamin C deals with that. Who mentions that again bravely? Dr. Malcolm Kendrick.
Can I just say something about D3? For years I cared for elderly relatives, and when you go to I can't remember what they're called online, but if you even look at the inside of your prescription medications, unfortunately, quite a few like heart drugs, like blood thinners, I can't remember off the top, there's a contraindication with D3. So we have to be careful as well, we can't just tell everybody just to take D3. Check your prescription medications, And also, this is not medical advice, always say that.
Has anybody heard the latest for the Italians? Has anybody here heard the latest for the Italians?
Oh, we want to hear it, John.
I think Trump mentioned about the bad
I'm surprised nobody's heard this. This is about a week old for the Italians, who are very involved in this. Because remember, they had the highest COVID-19 deaths, remember? That was their blueprint. As they were leading up to the lockdown, they were shouting, look at them all dying in Italy, look at them all dying in Italy. Since then, the Italians have had a thorough investigation, and lo and behold, as we all knew, they were fake, the deaths were fake, they were all COVID-19. But the Italians just went further than that, and this was last week this came out, that the coronavirus, the thing, whatever we'll call it, is indeed not a virus at all. Has anybody heard this?
Yes.
And it's actually a bacterium that causes the blood to clot, because lo and behold, around about the same time as this information came out, it's funny, last Saturday I got a report for somebody that bought a newspaper, obviously they didn't toilet paper, and they were reading on this that the Scottish Government, whoever that is, I don't know, the Scottish Government had announced that a paracetamol, anybody with COVID-19 was to take a paracetamol, obviously for the blood thinning thing. Did you hear that and all about the paracetamol? Or an aspirin, these things thin the blood. So I thought I would just add that in, because we're getting a wee bit deep in this virus, and maybe the powers to be are loving it with us, you know, because the more we mention this virus, the more we get life, you understand, the more we add to it, and we keep it going. And lo and behold, it could be a bacterium all the time. That's what it looks like. So, there's a bacterium, is it still getting hidden in us? Is it that big ship again that was launched, the one that weighs 10 million tonne, and it takes 10 miles to stop, and once it's gone you can't stop it? Is this what the virus is?
Everybody's wanting to talk, that's good. What's son? He's using me.
Can I just say the thing about the red blood cell clotting? That is, as I'm sure you're all aware, the same thing that happens with exposure to electromagnetic fields, Wi-Fi, all of those, 3G, 4G. As an EMF sensitive person, I know quite a bit about it, so there are many reasons why you get blood clotting like that, but there are steps that you can take to prevent it or to mitigate it, and it goes back to what I was saying last week about supplements, your diet, etc. I've not submitted it if anybody's interested in looking at, learning about. That's all, I just wanted to share that, thanks.
But that's a perfect cue to move on. Thanks for that contribution to you both. I should also add, even if there's other possibilities when it comes to the oxygen lowering capacity, what can happen as well, and Doris Lowe, the biochemist, pointed this out, that if the virus was to get into the blood, quite often what was happening from her view of the process and mechanism of this virus was that it was taking out the oxygen carrying ability in the hemoglobin in your red blood cells, and it was creating cell-free heme and clotting. But the point is absolutely bang on that electromagnetic radiation too, even at very low doses like Wi-Fi or your phone, can contribute to blood slowly coagulating. I've forgotten the technical name for that, but the science is there. Now, I've brought something along here to show you folks, right? We're all told, and we're all told that electromagnetic radiation, like low, not sort of, the non-ionizing radiation does no human harm. That's what comes from the various bodies and groups, even the WHO endorses that, right? What I have with me here today is 3 sets of papers, declassified information. Anyone wants to see this? Naval Medical Research Institute, NASA, all of this is double pages. I'm happy to pass this around, and most of this predates 1990. So when we have ERCNet and other groups telling us that non-ionizing radiation causes no harm whatsoever, what we have here is 3 detailed papers that are on the internet. Anyone can print them off if you find them, and it's in-depth analysis by government and intelligence services from different parts of the world. And what they go into is everything from low level, like from 900 megahertz, right up to the 5G of 20 gigahertz plus. I've read this in detail, but it was months and months ago, and it would take probably a week to go through the details. So the one simple point to make here is that our governments, American governments and Russian governments, have always known that low-level radiation causes damage to all forms of life, period.
Here,
So when they tell you anything,
here.
they're actually, and what it leads to, the understanding is clear. This is about corporate profits. So when you've got this body of work, 3 bodies of work, proving beyond doubt everything that they knew, they are lying to the public. They are manipulating the public. They've given out phones knowing that anyone with a medical background or common sense knows that the cornerstone of disease is oxidative stress or damage to DNA strands 1 or 2. That's the cornerstone of disease. If you start causing oxidative stress or damage to DNA, you will lead to lots of different diseases. Some of them will be cancer, some will be other diseases, and some of those diseases are things like diabetes type 2. So there are lots of diseases that we know from the science now, from Professor Martin Paul, the list goes on and on. Sharon Goldberg, Dr. Sharon Goldberg, there's the 5G summit on just now. We know that the science causes chronic illnesses. And we know there's been an increase, particularly in France, a fourfold increase in brain tumours to young people using their mobile phones. So when anyone tells you, and it's usually, oh, you're tin hat cranks, we're nutcases, we're this, we're that. Well, the people who use that language are the brainwashed. And that is what's been going on. And once you start looking at things like, we'll move on to vaccines next, you see a pattern of where corporate power puts their, to use a Scottish phrase, puts their fit on your neck. And they will speak the truth. And what I mean by that is they'll fact check you and say you're basically a liar. And the truth of the matter is they're the ones suppressing the truth and manipulating people through the propaganda and denying thousands and thousands of modern studies. Now, with a phrase like, the fit on your neck, I'm going to just briefly say, I stand with Black Lives Matter, because I'm no racist, right? So, let's say we lift our hands, and you can close your fist and say, we're with Black Lives Matter. And it's sad for everyone that loses their life. But let's say, for the elderly who have lost their lives in the care homes, all lives matter. For the children who go missing, over 100,000 every year, all lives matter. And let's look back to thalidomide. When the drugs were given out, there was meant to have been a clinical trial. It was a marketing stunt. How many kids were born disabled? How many were actually killed? And killed by, sometimes it was even nurses and doctors because of the reaction. So you look back to the stuff on thalidomide, you will find some pretty sad things that happened. I watched something yesterday and I was in tears watching it. Absolutely horrific. So when it comes to corporate truth, and you look at Big Pharma, they have got previous, as the police would say, and what I mean by that is previous behaviour, MO, modus operandi, for concealing the truth. I'm going to go on to vaccines now. And I've seen some on the internet a few weeks ago saying, if you criticise vaccines and you're anti-vaccine, you will be considered a terrorist. A terrorist. Now, we had a Scottish Enlightenment in this country. We're meant to be a democracy. That means we listen to opposing views. Now, I believed many years ago, when my twins were wee and my son was small, that you get a vaccine and it protects your children. And when I was a kid, quite a long time ago, quite a long time ago,
you're still a boy.
In the 60s, I'm still a boy at heart, right? It would be maybe 1 in 100,000 who were born autistic. You know what it is in America now? It's 1 in 48. 2010, it was like 1 in 250. Now, are we not seeing a pattern?
Sure.
Corporate people using stuff, pharmaceutical products, and what they do put inside vaccines includes formiasol, a form of mercury,
Yes.
they put aluminium, as the Americans say aluminum. Both of these are neurotoxins. So if they go into your blood, they're going to go through your blood-brain barrier.
Formaldehyde as well.
Formaldehyde. Yep, there's quite a lot of substances. And the one that horrified me when I was watching Dr. Dietrich Klinghardt was diploid DNA human cells, which means cells from aborted fetuses. I'm going to repeat that because I was gobsmacked. Cells from aborted fetuses. It's listed as diploid DNA cells. And Dietrich Klinghardt, after that, swears, and I quote, and he says, on this issue, where the fuck is the Christian church? And I echo his question. Now, if we're talking about, you know, I mean, last year there was 11.2 million abortions on this planet. What is humanity turning to? Dr. Barry Trower asked the question while he did a piece, Humanity at the Brink. We're actually witnessing the dissembling of the democratic process. We're lucky that our police here believe in democracy. We're not being hammered. They police by consent. And I give my due respect to every constable out doing their work. And I would ask them as well that they are citizens of this country too, to sometimes think, where are we heading? Now this sounds like a heavy charge where democracy is being dismantled. I refer to evidence here, and I think a QC should put this in court. The evidence is, in 2010, a paper was published called Lockstep from the Rockefeller Institute. And in the scenario of Lockstep, published 2010, right? This is a conspiracy theory. This is what the elites do, having accumulated billions and billions of pounds. They think they're the gods of power. There is only one God that created every cell on this earth, every being, every tree, every part of everything we see. And all knees will buckle to the Lord one day, including Mr. Bill Gates and the Rockefeller. Christian values aside, no ideology has got any application anymore on this earth. Humanity is at stake. Who and what we are, that we can touch someone. Now, in some ways, we can understand the abuse from the rich and powerful. We're not meant to be more than 6 feet apart. A healthy population locked down, it doesn't make any sense, does it? And it didn't even work, because every time we buy anything from a shop, you go to the supermarkets, we're within 1.5 foot of people daily. Now,
what about the taxis?
Ferguson, Professor Ferguson should model some stats on the average person buying food over the last few months who are within 1 foot or so of every person in every supermarket handing them money. So if that disease was as contagious as they said, despite them lowering it legally, you know, before the lockdown, oxymoron flagged up there, why has every person in the supermarkets not died? They should be dead.
What about the rioters in America? Why is there not thousands lying dead in the street? They've been pushed against each other.
But basically what's been happening is that the SAGE group, you know, a bit of behavioural psychology, everyone, now let's accept that those people who've taken, I for one point being a dad was very concerned, given I've got kids, and I believe some of the hype at the start, thinking, wow, get plenty of vitamin C in, get plenty of vitamin D into your body, because this looks really deadly stuff. Then we find the reality, and slowly we realise that the negativity is coming from propaganda. And we must understand, folks, we need to reach out, and we better not scare them, because we go 2 feet and shake hands with them. We're going to be guilt-tripped that we are passing on transmission of this deadly virus that could kill us all, when we know that they lowered the sort of disease thing from it, and it's not going to happen. We know that the majority will be asymptomatic. If the majority is asymptomatic, your immune system's taking it out. And if you've had it, and your immune system has handled it easily, you're immune for life, Bill Gates. We don't need your bloody vaccine.
Vaccinate Bill Gates.
Okay, let's talk about Bill in some ways, right? This guy has been given the elevation to be like the medical doctor of planet Earth. His big ambition is to vaccinate the globe, whether we need it or not, right? Because there's so much money in it. So we're back to the theme earlier. Follow the money. Follow the money. Now, in 2010, just after the Rockefeller paper came out, and that Rockefeller paper stated a virus would be used as a pretext to gain authoritarian top-down control, their language, of democracies, right? Straight after that, published, Bill Gates states with glee, this will be the decade of the vaccine. Because he always adds with 9 E's, doesn't it, to the vaccine, right? Because it means so much to him. So Bill Gates, straight after that paper comes out, so you can see there's obviously been discussion there. And then we find September last year that the UN produces a paper, I think it's The World in Peril, and that talks about 2 possible pandemics. And it talks about a possible release of a pathogen, a deadly pathogen.
But you said that in 2014 though. He said in Trump's presidency there was going to be a surprise outbreak. How did he know that?
Good question. Dr. Anthony Fauci appears to be one of the insiders with this agenda because of the phrase he said, there will be a surprise virus that's going to hit the Trump administration. Well, I'm not going to keep rabbiting on, folks are going to get bored if we do that, but in some ways, to try and pull things together, this is an anti-lockdown. We do need to reach out to brothers and sisters who think we are the nutcases, who think we are spreading disease when we know that we're not. This virus is not going to affect you if you've got a decent immune system. And we need to communicate that information.
Can I just say something? I've never been vaccinated in my life, and neither have my 3 children, and we've never got the flu, ever. We've got chickenpox and things like that, but we've never had the flu. So our immune system is that saying, no vaccination.
Brilliant. We need more people to say that, because I think what's potentially coming that might hit the entire fabric of democracy itself and our human rights is that they may try to impose a forced vaccine, right?
Never.
And we must flag up.
Never.
We are not nutcases.
Vaccinate Gates.
There's a fair chance that there's going to be possibly a chip, nanoparticles and chips put into this. This is a depopulation agenda. And if you look at the UN site, this one absolutely floored me. Just after last week, it was pointed out to me by, I think, the next speaker, and the United Nations have now got a project which they call the New World Order. It's hard to believe that they've just broken cover. We planned this, they say, in 2008. And you can rest assured that Bill Gates was saying the population needs to come down, their ideas of sustainability, their basic premise is as follows. There's not enough resources on the planet to sustain the population at the level that it is. That basic statement is wrong.
Yes,
there is no need for mass murder, you stupid genocidal idiots.
Are you talking about anti-vax? You know, for vaccination.
Take the mic. Go for it, Lassie.
Just to say, vaccination is there to protect immunodeficient people. So the more people who can take the vaccination in, that's important for people who cannot because of disabilities. If you are purposefully not vaccinating your kids or people around you, you are putting disabled people's lives at risk. And that's all.
It's okay, folks.
Fight online this morning.
We are a democracy, folks. We're a democracy. Everyone should be able to express their views, whether we like it or not, and that's the way it should be. I'm happy for anyone to oppose anything I've got to say, because I'll go and check out the evidence. But for anyone who doesn't know the work of Dr. Suzanne Humphreys, this is in relation to vaccines. If you haven't heard of Dr. Suzanne Humphreys, I would suggest you should listen to Dr. Suzanne Humphreys. The principle of vaccines, as Dr. Rashid Buttar said, the principle I can agree with. But what I won't agree with, and I'll paraphrase him, is
Louder,
stupidity.
Paddy!
Sorry?
Speak louder!
Louder, my apologies. Dr. Suzanne Humphreys is one of the people to look at on YouTube when it comes to vaccines. Also, Dr. Randy E. Tent, absolutely compelling. If you start watching him at 1 in the morning and it's a 2-hour lecture, you can't go to bed. He is astonishing. So we need to educate people and show them that we care, that we're not dangerous individuals. Think about passing on a virus. What we actually want to do, people, is when they're saying, the government's saying we're going to take control of this virus, we need to control the virus.
By taking away paper money.
Aye. What they're actually controlling just now is actually us. We have become the virus. That is the problem. And also I'm going to say, they told us if we manage to, what's the word, flatten the curve, they said that we would get out of lockdown. That was one of the conditions. Then they moved the goalposts. Now they're saying that certain people can't have sex. So I would like to say we need to flatten the curve of autism. Flatten the curve of autism. Bring corporate power under control and stop the chronic illnesses that the pharmaceutical companies are creating to make money out of sickness. We want to save the NHS from corporate bloody greed. Thanks for listening to my rant.